Hi, my name is Kayla Cardona, and this is my story. So I was born in Fullerton, California, and raised in Costa Mesa, Santa Ana area. And my childhood was, I had a lot of good memories, but it was also, it was tough. My parents divorced when I was 1, so I was going through me and my sister were going through a lot of trauma, and it was very hard on both of us. My father, he was very scared to lose my sister and I, because my mom, she was a little, she wasn't all there, and she would say things to him like, if, I'm gonna call the cops and say that you're sexually harassing our daughters. And he was so afraid to lose us. So he told us, and I remember it like it was yesterday, he said, I am never going to hug you or hold you, just so you know, because I never want to lose you. And so since then, we never got hugs or kisses or anything from our father. And it was just what that does to you mentally as a daughter that looks up to their father. It can be mentally hurt you. So my mom, she was just not all there. She was always in different relationships. I just remember her always just being with a guy. She was in a long-term relationship with this one guy, but it was just very toxic. We felt like, meaning me and my sister, we felt very like just neglected all the time. And me and my mom didn't have a relationship. And I even told her, I'm like, I don't even look at you as my mom. I look at you as someone that's just had me and just trying to raise me. Wow. And it was just, I would call her out. I would say, like, she would take us to like a park, and she like bought weed or something, and I like called her out, and it was just those things that I just never looked at her like that, like a mother. So, I'm not trying to talk bad about my mom or bash her, but just to give you an idea of like how we were raised and what kind of parents we had. And like to this day, she's still trying to figure it out. And it's just, I've kind of accepted who she is a long time ago because I had to. I'm like, she's never gonna change. So, with that being said, with my stepmom and my dad now, so I was raised with them together, but it was hard. My birth mother made it very difficult for all of us, and it's just the cops were always at the door, and my dad working multiple jobs just to take care of us and raise us, so he was hardly there. I just remember always being at my aunt's house in Santa Ana, so it was tough. But I considered myself a daddy's girl. I looked up to him. I just wanted him to be happy. That's like all I cared about. And everything was getting better. There was a time where me and my sister split. So she felt bad for my mom, so she stayed with my mom. And I was like, I don't want to live with my mom. I don't have a relationship with you. I have no respect for you. And that's when I went and I lived with my dad. When I grew up, I always felt like I was different. Like I felt like I've always had like my own voice. And so, but when I had my own voice, my parents were always like, I always felt like they made me feel like I was bad or I was the rebel child. But it's like, no, it's just, I just know what I believe in and what I don't. So, I had dreams, and I had dreams to be a singer and an actress, and my parents would never support that, and they always kind of put me down. I was always kind of, not always put me down. I don't want to sit there and say that my parents were so bad, because they weren't. There were so many good things. But I just remember like going back and just thinking why I ended up the way I did, which we'll go into that in a little bit. And so to fast forward to what happened. So this is where like everything kind of changed my entire life. When I was 17, I found out I was pregnant, and I never even had to talk with my parents. I mean, they didn't even know I was having sex. So, you know, I found out I was pregnant, and I felt something was happening to my body. Something didn't feel right. And at this time I was with my mom. Every other weekend I would be with my mom, and my mom at the time was living in a car shop. So she like made an office into a room, and that's where we stayed. And so I was in that car shop, and there's, you know, mechanics, you smell those fumes and stuff like that. So she just looked at me, and I told her how I felt, and I don't know why I'm feeling this way. And then she was like, I think you might be pregnant. And I was like, what? No. And I tried to deny it because I was so scared. And then she went to go get a test for me. She gave me the test, and I was pregnant, and I started crying. I immediately thought my dad's gonna kill me. So she's like, we have to tell your dad. So I was like, okay, well, we do, and I can't be in this car shop smelling these fumes if I'm pregnant. So we called him, and I just remember them not believing her, like, she's not pregnant. And they finally were convinced that it's true. So I just remember my dad saying, don't even come home. And I'm just like, okay. So I call the father, which I know it was, you know. So I called the father, and I was like, I told him the news, and I told him, like, I can't stay at the car shop. I have to come with you. And so I called back my dad, and I told him I'm staying. His name is, I probably shouldn't say his name. The baby's dad, I told him I was gonna stay with him, and he was like, absolutely not. I'm getting you now. And I was like, this is my death sentence. I'm gonna die. So he gets me. And I'm so overwhelmed with emotions, not knowing what's gonna happen with me, what they're gonna do to me, that I don't really remember at that point. And then we get home, and I just remember my parents giving me an ultimatum. They said, either you keep the child and you leave, or you find a family to adopt and you stay home. So I thought, well, I'm 17 years old. Where am I gonna go? I'm like sheltered all my life. I don't know anything about the real world. So I was like, of course. And I found a family to give my son up for adoption. And then one morning I woke up, I was about 7 months pregnant, and something empowering came over me. Something told me to keep my baby. And let me remind you, I'm scared as fuck about my parents. Can I curse? Okay. I was really scared of them, but something was telling me to keep him. And I had this like confidence that came out of nowhere. And I'm just like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing, but I'm gonna tell them I'm keeping him. And so that's what I did. I just went up to them and I told them, I'm keeping my son. And they're just like, okay. And that's when they took me in the car and they sent me to a minor shelter in Tustin. And so this shelter, I don't know if I should say the names, no?
It's all up to you.
Yeah.
I'm sure it helped you in a way, no?
Yeah, Mary Shelter. So it was a shelter for minors. So either the women were pregnant or already had kids. So these women, they were in there because of drug abuse, alcoholism, toxic relationships, abusive relationships. I was in there because I was homeless. And so I felt already like I'm nothing like these girls. I mean, it was like a whole new world. I mean, these girls were aggressive, they were fighting, they were yelling, and I'm just like, where am I? And so I was in there for a bit, and I was very depressed. I mean, you can only imagine what's going through my head. I'm 17, pregnant, and my parents just gave me up because I am not worthy. So, so basically, I was like, well, I didn't have a phone or anything. You had a certain time to call people, like in this little phone, like cubicle thing. I don't know. It's kind of like house arrest or something.
You mentioned that you're even though you lived in a shelter, that your parents still had control of you.
Yes. So, being a minor, your parents still have legal rights over you. Unless they like gave you up. I don't know how that works, but they sent me there, so they still had rights over me. So they told me that I wasn't allowed to have any connection with anyone but them and my sister. Well, my parents aren't going to talk to me, and I'm not going to talk to them after what they did. So the only person I was able to talk to was my sister. So I called her, I tried to get a hold of her, and at the time she was 18 doing her thing. She got out of the house, she's like living her life. And so I told her I could miss her. I said, Amber, my sister, I need you to take me to my baby dad's house. I need to tell him where I'm at, why I disappeared, because I left out of the blue. No one knew what happened. It was during the summer that I was going into my senior year of high school. So it was before I even entered. So everyone saw me in the end of my junior year, and then senior year came and I wasn't there. So that's what she did. She came and she picked me up. She took me to his house, and I showed up at his house, knocked on his door. He answers, and he looks at me like shocked, and he's like, where have you been? And so I told him, and I start crying. I was like, my parents kicked me out of the house. They sent me to a shelter. I don't have a phone. I wasn't able to call you. And I told him that I would marry him because he told me he wanted to get married. And so I said no. But then of course, after everything that happened, I was like, well, he's all I have. So I told him, I'll marry you. And then that's when he starts crying. And I was like, I hope these are happy tears. And that's when he told me that he was already married and that she is pregnant. And so I was like, well, that's all of what I thought I had left. So getting emotional. Sorry. So I go back to the shelter, and it just, my whole world just, I don't remember a lot. I couldn't think. I felt like I was just existing. And I'm like, everyone that I thought loved me just gave up and let me go. And that's when the mental issues just snowballed, because I just was already thinking, I'm not worthy. No one loves me. I am nothing. And so on my 18th birthday, I got transferred to another shelter, Casa Teresa in Orange County, in the city of Orange. And I was the baby. I was 18 years old, and all the other women were like in their, what I remember is like 30s, 40s. So I was the baby there, and they treated me like their daughter. And I just felt more at home than I did Mary Shelter. Mary Shelter was just a lot of the younger women, and just, they got a lot going on. So I went to Casa Teresa, and they have like 3 different levels. The first level is you get your own like studio, and then if you go to the classes and you follow all the rules, and you have a curfew, you know those rules, then you can go to the next level and the next level. So it was great. I was able to finish high school in that shelter. I had a job, had a few jobs. I didn't have a car. So at the time, I mean, you can only imagine a 18-year-old Latina walking the streets of Santa Ana with a backpack in one hand and a car seat and a baby in another, and a diaper bag, walking the streets and taking the bus. It was, I cried every day in the rain and windy. It didn't matter. Hot, I needed to do what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
So I was proud to save up enough money. I got my first car. It was like $2,000. It was like this used, beat up Lexus.
Mm-hmm.
But I was proud of it. I'm like, this is my first car.
Ever since that first shelter, I mean, I heard you say, like, when I went to another shelter, you were so grateful for the things that they offered. But if you went to that shelter first, your perspective would have been different. You know, you would have been...
I think so.
Well, you went from bad to a little better. You
Yeah.
know? So if
Yeah.
you started there, it would have just started bad. And it was your perspective. And I'm sure that $2,000 car was your Ferrari.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So so I accomplished a lot in that shelter. I was in there for about 8 months or so. And I was able to kind of get myself kind of picked up and back together, you know.
So
and
you started raising your son in the shelter?
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, so it was getting better. I was starting to see the light, you know, and so, you know, shelters, they don't last forever. So it was time for me to go. And I was like, well, where am I gonna go? I haven't been on my own yet in the real world because I went from my parents' house straight to the shelter. So I was like, oh, what's gonna happen? So at the time I was with this guy. I was in a relationship, and I moved in with him and their family, and they were a Hispanic family, so you already know how loving they all were. And it didn't work out, and then I moved in with my high school sweetheart. So basically I was in relationship after relationship, and it was because I needed help, and that's what I was looking for. And not only that, but
You were looking for love? Too?
I was looking for love. I was just looking to be accepted, and these families that were allowing me in accepted me. But the relationships were toxic. I mean, I was a kid with a kid that's not even theirs, and so that you can only imagine how much problems that caused and how many issues that created. So I finally decided that I was done. I was done being in relationship after relationship. I was just an angry girl, and I was always mad. And when I get mad, I would yell and scream, and to my child too. And I'm just like, I can't do this anymore. And so I decided to leave. But when I left, where was I gonna go? So that's when me and my son slept in my car in the streets of Santa Ana again. And I just remember being on the car and him in the back seat in his car seat, hoping and praying that no one sees us in my car, and like look through the window. And I don't know who's wandering the streets at night. You know, at that time Santa Ana was a little bit more rough, so, and the neighborhoods I would go in were rough. And so I'm just like, what am I doing with my life? And I just remember praying to God and getting emotional. I'm like, you gave me the power to say I needed to keep my son. Now you need to guide me here, because I don't know what I'm doing. And so so finally I reached out to my aunt that was living in Santa Ana at the time, and I told her, can I please stay with you for a little bit until I find a place at least? And I told her the situation, and she hardly speaks English, so it was very hard for us to communicate. And so she said, of course, come. So I went in, I brought all my stuff, like the little stuff that fit in my car that I had. And I just remember bringing all my stuff in their house, and I wake up one morning and half of my stuff is gone. And I'm just like, where's my stuff? And I can't tell you what I know that today. I don't know if it was my own family. I don't know if it was my family's friends. I don't know what happened, but more than half of my stuff was gone. I'm just like, I just got robbed in my own aunt's house. Are you kidding me? Yeah. So I'm like, well, it's not like I had a lot of value, or, you know, I just had a few things. But So I was in there for a bit, and then I finally, went on Craigslist, and I started renting rooms after rooms. I was like, I gotta get out of this area. So I went back to South Orange County. So I went back to like Lake Forest area, and I started renting rooms after rooms. We were moving like every 3 to 6 months, and it was easy because we just had a mattress, a few toys, clothes. We didn't have any furniture, so it's easy to move. And just looking back and thinking, wow, I always had that drive, but my mindset was I wasn't not there. And so anyway, so I decided, I'm like, okay, well, I need to do something with my life because I can't be working like this anymore. So I wanted to go to college. I did for a little bit, didn't work out. So I was like, what am I good at that I can make money that will be quick? Beauty school. So then I went to beauty school, and I was like, okay, I can do this. This is easy. So I did beauty school. I finished, and I became a cosmetologist. So I started working in like I started assisting first. That was a waste of time. I mean, you're their personal assistant basically, and so I didn't learn much. So I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here. And so I got into like corporate salons, and I realized that I really didn't like women's hair. So I got into men's hair, and there is an opportunity to work in a men's salon where they train you for 2 weeks and then you go on the floor. I'm like, perfect, because beauty school doesn't really teach you how to like cut men's hair. So I was like, perfect, this is a good opportunity. So, and you get paid, perfect. So I did that, and at the same time, as soon as I turned 21, so I went into beauty school when I was 22, but as soon as I turned 21, I got a job in nightclubs. So I started doing bottle service. So that saved me. So I was working 3 jobs during the day, and then I had one at night, so that saved me. I mean, 8 years ago, we made a lot of money doing bottle service. Now it's not so much. And yes, I still do bottle service almost 10 years later. So I started doing hair, and then, I started being consistent in that. And then over time, I was able to build my clientele and make enough money. And then that's when in 2016, I opened my first salon suite. And because I just realized that I can't work for someone else's dream. I'm not saying that I don't follow rules very good, but I don't want you to tell me what I can or cannot wear. Yeah, I don't want you to tell me like, oh, I'm having an attitude problem. So I got like a write-up for that, which I was like, are you kidding me? So anyways, so I decided, I'm like, I gotta work on my own. I've always had that entrepreneurial mindset. So that's a little bit about going to today, but do you want me to get deeper into like the mindset part?
Sure.
Okay. So with that being said, like with my story, you can tell and know already where I was mentally. I was extremely insecure, had very low self-esteem, didn't feel loved, always looked for that in relationships, and it was just, I was a mess. I was lost. But it wasn't until about 3 years ago I really started, I call it my awakening. About 3-4 years ago, my awakening. I started asking questions. I'm like, there's something more to life, but I don't know what it is. There's something more to me, but I don't know what it is. And so, believe it or not, I started realizing this because I started coming across stuff on Instagram, like the chakras and the energies and frequencies, and I'm like, what is this? So I started like kind of looking up and doing my research, and then that's when it's just kind of started from there. And then over time, I started realizing that there's so much more to life than what I'm doing. And so I started studying and reading. And I never was a reader before, But I wanted to change that. I started listening to podcasts. I started following these people that are extremely successful, but not just with their businesses or money, but with their mindset. And I'm just like, what is this? And I kept going. I kept searching. I kept looking. I kept asking questions. And to be completely honest with you, it wasn't until about 8 months ago, it finally hit me that I finally decided to 100% love myself. And that's when everything changed. And you would think, oh, 8 months ago is not that long ago. But right when that just hits you, you become obsessed with getting better. And you become obsessed, and it made me realize that, like, my purpose in life is to help people and to use my story to inspire other people. And that's when I realized what my purpose was. And I knew that there was something, and it just kind of slapped me in the face one day. And I was like, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. Everything that I was searching for was right here the entire time. And the only thing is, I wish I figured this out sooner. I'm 30 now. And I wish I figured this out sooner, but I know everything happens for a reason. And things kept happening to me, like bad relationships. And I realized this is an example, I realized that the reason why I kept having bad relationships was because there was so much in here I needed to fix first. And so everything just came and started just slapping me. Like, everything started making sense. And I'm just like, mind blown. And my life has been completely changing for the past 6 months.
Wow.
And my purpose in life, I know exactly why I'm here. And I want to be that. I want to be that role model for these women, these young moms, single moms, teenage moms, women in general, men too. I want to show them, hey, this is what I've been through. This is what I've learned. This is where I'm at. I'm not where I want to go I'm not where I want to be right now, but I'm sure hell on my way. And I want to share my journey. I want to show them I'm human, because people are so like, oh, this is my success. This is my cars and my houses and stuff like that. Well, they didn't really see what it took to get there. And there's not a lot of people that are out there being authentic and showing them what you had to go through. And so that's why I'm here for. That's what I want to show people. Like, this is only the beginning. And so, that's why I show my journey. I'm right now, I mentioned that I was a hairstylist, and then I became a barber, because I loved men's hair. But now I'm a realtor. I just got my license 2 months ago. Thank you. And I now am in an office in Mission Viejo with Entrepreneurial Real Estate Services. And, it was great. I love hair. But it was a decision I made at a very young age, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I needed to do something quick. I needed to make a decision. But during those years, I was able to develop the people skills. I was able to build that confidence that I needed, that I did not have. I mean, I barely looked at people in their eye. That's how low self-esteem I had. I would just put my head down all the time. I didn't see value in myself at all. So over the years of being being a hairstylist, I was able to get that confidence, work with people, learn how to sell, learn how to talk to people. And then over time, I was able to grow in that, but then also grow in my mindset. And so that's when I started figuring out, who's Kayla? What does she want to do for the rest of my life? And so I was like, well, I've always loved homes and houses and people and helping people, real estate. Everything just pointed to real estate. And so, I have other things going on, of course, but so now I'm here. So now I'm just starting my journey. And the other day I posted the picture of my little tiny cubicle desk that I have. And I told people, I'm like, I'm not afraid to be seen at the bottom. And I want people to see my new business adventure, my new journey, and show them, all right, this is the beginning. Now let's go on in this together. And you know, it's just, it's been one hell of a ride, but it's just, for me, it goes up from here. Even the downs, everything is a learning experience. And if it wasn't for me realizing that everything I was searching for is here, and the self-love and changing my mindset completely, your perspective is everything. I mean, I can go on and on and on. I wouldn't have been able to my whole way that I look at life is completely different. Anything bad that happens to me, I'm like, all right, what's the lesson I need to learn in this? Or if something keeps happening to me, I realize, all right, there's a lesson I didn't learn in what happened then that I need to learn right now. So because that's just how life works. If you don't learn that lesson, it's going to keep happening to you in different ways. So it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So again, my name is Kayla Cardona, and I really, really hope that this story inspires you or anyone else out there that anything is possible. You can change the way you think, your entire mindset, your entire being to be better.